Hello and welcome to the channel. As always, like the video, and if you enjoyed the story, leave a comment on if you would want more. This fan fiction was not created by me, but in the description there is a link to the fanfic so you can show your support to the creator and read along. Without any more delay, let's dive into the story.
How is he? Minato didn't even start as Rin, and Inoichi practically flew into the room, albeit in a more controlled ninja-like manner. He was too focused on worrying about the eye of his student, which seemed to become more unfocused by the minute. Even calling out to him or waving his hand in front of Obito's, I hadn't alerted the teenager, which caused a sudden nervous feeling to puddle in the blonde's chest. Physically, he is fine. He is breathing normally and his heart rate has calmed down. Minato's lips thinned as he continued. However, his responses have decreased dramatically. He has not said anything since then, doesn't respond to his own name or visible movement, and I'm unsure how aware he is. During the explanation, it hadn't taken Inoichi long to notice the Obito's unfocused eye and walked over before putting his hand on the boy's forehead to give him a quick scan. Minato paused for a moment and sighed heavily when the Yamanaka shook his head negatively. I can't read him properly right now. Feels as if he's starting to sink into a coma. We have to move quickly, but there is too much chaos to do anything drastic without an examination first. Coma. Rin's hands flew up to her mouth in fear for her teammate. The future Hokage froze momentarily before closing his eyes for a moment to center his thoughts again. He looked up to his friend, gave him a solemn nod, and started to share his observations during the short time that the others had been gone. His body started wiggling uncomfortably. I tried to calm him down, but only patting his shoulder or stoking his head and calmly talking to him seemed to work properly. Furthermore, his movements and manner. He paused momentarily when he felt a familiar chakra spike in a manner that let him know that his last student would arrive in a second. He was right, as not even half a second later, his silver-haired student reappeared with the sandaime at his side. Hokage-sama. Both men called out respectfully. I heard there has been a development, the man stated. He looked as calm and controlled as he ever was, complete with the pipe in his hands, but Minato could see the heaviness in the eyes of the man. He had a soft spot for children like Obito troublemaker that the boy was. Minato quickly summarized what had occurred while Inoichi made another scan of the teenager's mental activity. It is as if he is a baby. Minato confirmed as his eyes flickered to the blonde standing right next to him as Minato ran his hand through Obito's hair, trying to calm him. Kakashi's hands clenched ever so slightly, but he found himself pulled away by Rin, who decided it was better to give the older men some space. Kakashi protested at first and tried to pull away, but she sent him a look which made him comply reluctantly. They will tell us when they need us, she tried to say to him with her eyes, and he gave a short nod, before his eyes turned back to the paralyzed figure of his troublesome friend. Why can't it ever be easy with you, Obito? He couldn't help but wonder, his teeth clenching. His mental activity just increased. That's good. Inoichi called out and waved for Rin to come closer. Rin-chan, are you able to keep his brain stable with your chakra? Hi. The girl stated with a nod and stepped around the man to take a place at the other end of the bed before she placed two hands on the side of Obito's head. Kakashi couldn't help but despise how useless he currently felt. He was momentarily urged to stand closer to his teammate, but squished that feeling. He had to face the painful fact as it was. In this current situation, he was pathetically useless. Obito. How he hated to be in this situation. The moment that he had realized that he was not in control of his body, he had tried to get control back. However, instead of regaining control, the Uchiha lost track of what was going on around him. Everything seemed fuzzy for a while. He had panicked, of course, but had calmed when he heard the voice of his sensei talk to him in a rather comforting manner. The hair stroking felt strangely nice as well. Not that the Uchiha would ever admit that to anyone. After a while of trying to focus, he found himself aware once again. At first, his eye fixated on the blonde hair that he had been staring at most of the time without fully realizing it. He couldn't help but feel comforted that he was back to reality again, which was why he constantly fought the pull that would surely make him lose control again. No way am I going back to that fuzziness, Obito thought stubbornly as he struggled to remain where he was mentally. It is as if he is a baby. He heard his sensei tell the others and mentally twitched in annoyance. Bwah! Obito tried to protest, but failed miserably. His face scrunched up when he seemed to notice that, instead of defending himself, he had actually just confirmed his sensei's statement. He moved his legs again, without even bothering to try to control them this time. The frustration built up inside of him, making him restless, and he had to move. Unfortunately, the teen's limbs seemed unable to make anything but random movements. It took a lot of effort and control to direct them even a little bit, and he would not risk another trip back to the fuzzy awareness. Mentally, Obito felt helpless. Why is Naruto not in control? He couldn't help but feel relieved as he felt Rin's familiar caress touch the sides of his face and shiver as he felt her chakra try to stabilize his situation. He felt his panic fade away as the pull that he had been fighting also vanished. It came at a price, however, since once stable, the chaotic emotions that coursing through his mind got the opportunity to show their presence. He is stable. He heard the Yamanaka speak up as he removed his hand and moved to stand next to the Sandame. He should be unresponsive for only a little longer. However, his control over his emotions is fading as well. Inoichi continued as Obito once again became aware of what they were saying. He could even clearly notice the tone of worry in the ninja's voice that should be barely noticeable. Don't let the emotions get the better of you. Obito tried to tell himself, but it wasn't working. Don't be such a crybaby. His eyes flickered to his silver-haired teammate as he suddenly remembered the origin of that particular sentence. Damn it. He could feel the wave of tears coming, slowly but steadily building up right behind his eye. He closed his eye quickly as if it would prevent the tears from escaping. He could practically feel Minato frown at him as his sensei surely spotted the tears forming in the edge of Obito's eye before they ran down his cheeks. Obito felt his sensei's hand, the hand which had been stroking Obito's hair in a comforting motion, smoothly moved to his cheek to wipe away the tears from his eye. I can't even say that I have something in his eye, he thought, opening his eyes slightly but refusing to make eye contact in the embarrassing situation he was in. Damn it. Obito's eye flickered to Minato's and the boy's face scrunched up even more. To those outside of Obito's mind, it looked as if he was trying to keep himself from letting go of his emotions. Obito-kun, Minato slowly stated. It's all right. Just calm down. That was easy for him to say. Obito felt like yelling at his sensei. He felt like crying. He felt like thrashing and beating something up. He felt desperate to move, but he couldn't. He only could wiggle around uncomfortably in the bed in an effort to get control back over his body while trying not to sink back down in that dark space. What if that is how to get back to Naruto? He suddenly wondered. Should I allow myself to go back down? He keeps crying. The worried voice of his teammate spoke up, which made Inoichi pause his conversation with the Hokage. Nodding at him, the Sandame sent Inoichi back to his task of watching over Obito's mental activities, having been satisfied with having his most important questions answered for now. Obito saw Inoichi shake his head as he crouched down next to the bed once more, right next to his sensei near Obito's head. His eyes followed the movement carefully. He can't help it. Somehow it seems as if his mind has degraded to the mind of a baby. He is unable to respond like he should. Whatever is going on with him mentally, I'm afraid there might be a chance that it could become irreversible. Inoichi stated, leaning forward to take a good look at the boy's eye. Obito, however, was too focused on the caresses of Rin's hands to care. For some reason, it was Rin's touch that made him realize that he was alive. He wanted to savor this moment. Obito was only absently aware of what Inoichi was saying before he understood what it meant. The man clearly didn't even try to evade the uncomfortable possible outcome. They deserved to know what their teammate was going through, as they would be the ones taking care of Obito. What the hell are they talking about? Obito couldn't help but think. Am I going to be like this forever? What? Obito suddenly felt overwhelmed by the nerves that hit him. His eye flickered around him, searching support. Eventually he locked his gaze with Kakashi's eye, who was staring at him with a look in his eye that Obito couldn't describe. Inoichi-kun, do you think he has gone too far? The Sandame asked from where he stood at the end of the bed. He's not a baby. He is watching us. Kakashi protested from his corner, still staring at his teammate. Had it been any other situation, anyone would have been surprised that the young ninja would even dare to interrupt the Hokage. If Obito had the opportunity, he would surely have made a big fuss to annoy his teammate, but he couldn't. A baby follows movements as well. It is human instinct. Inoichi explained, but he did look at Obito's eyes closely once more and immediately noted the change in focus when Obito locked his eye on him. His eye is focused once more. He told the rest. Obito couldn't help but feel slightly warm and fuzzy at the relief that everyone showed. Kakashi-kun is right. He seems to be watching everything very clearly. The ninja agreed slowly and his eyes sharpened. His eye is sharp and aware. That means that this could be fixed. Obito couldn't help but keep an odd laugh escape his lips. It sounded so much like a baby's giggle, which caused him to feel his cheeks heat up not soon after. Would you please stop using your chakra to booster Obito's mind, Rin-chan? The girl followed his instruction reluctantly, and Obito couldn't help but frown as her hands pulled away, preparing himself to fight against the pull once more. He didn't feel any change in alertness though, which calmed his fears. He is stable without support? His sensei's tone was hopeful. Indeed. Very interesting. Came the amused tone from the Yamakana as he held up a finger in front of the boy's eye. If you are indeed as aware as I think you are, then your thinking process might even be at the normal capacity. I will have to run a few tests, Obito-kun. Please follow the movement of my finger. Obito obediently played along and followed the finger wherever he could. After a while, he gave Inoichi a pointed look when the man, deliberately, moved his hand beyond his angle of sight. That's just mean. Obito told him mentally, but Inoichi merely smiled at his expression. That's good. The man placed his hand back on his forehead, and Obito felt the man's chakra tickle his skin ever so slightly. Though it didn't feel as nice as Rin's chakra had felt. Obito, I want you to blink 5 times if you understand me. Obito blinked 5 times. Inoichi nodded before he gave another order. Blink 2 times. Then close your eye for 5 seconds, blink 3 times, and then look your sensei in the eyes. What the hell is he trying to pull? Does he think I will forget or something? Obito thought in annoyance, but he started following the orders anyway. After having blinked the final 3 times, his eye locked with Minato's, who smiled at him. That's good. Indeed. Inoichi agreed. Your thoughts are clear. He trailed off and turned towards Minato as he pulled his hand back. I have never seen something like this before. There was a slight pause as everyone allowed the situation to catch up to them. So, what do you advise, Inoichi-kun? The Sandaime inquired, knowing very well that this was the man's field of knowledge. The activity in his mind has calmed down. We will have to visit his mind again. He has to switch back. Whatever is going on, he is helpless like this. He has to regain control over his body. What do you mean? Rin couldn't help but ask. I suspect that the original Obito has woken up and is not in control as much we had hoped. Inoichi shared his theory carefully before he turned his attention back to the teenager on the bed. Obito-kun, have you noticed anything strange before you woke up? Blink 3 times for yes and close your eye for no. Obito blinked 3 times. Were you in some kind of forest before you woke up here? He blinked 3 times. Was it your mindscape? Obito made sure to frown at the tricky question before he gave the man 3 reluctant blinks. Was someone in your mind? The tone got more careful, Obito noted. Yes. Did he look like you? Still not lying, Obito reminded himself as he blinked 3 times once again. Did he tell you anything? There was a long pause as he stared at his questioner. Said ninja noticed his dubious look and decided to take another approach. Did he tell you what happened when you were gone? Yes. Did he tell you anything about himself? Anything odd? There was just a slight pause of reluctance before Obito firmly shut his eye. Even if I have to lie to them, this is for the best. We are going back into your mind, came the sudden statement as he felt himself being pulled up by a couple of hands. He cried out in protest, but they ignored him and pushed him into sitting position to lean against Minato, who had moved to sit behind him so he could be held up. Rin was kind enough to put some cushions behind him, and Kakashi settled next to him on the bed to help keep him in place should he start to move around like a child. Obito firmly told himself that Kakashi's hand on his shoulder was just something to restrain him and not because Kakashi would become overly worried about him. Because that would be really annoying. He did not want his teammates to hover over him with every move he made. Kakashi is acting strange enough as it is. Indeed, Obito couldn't help but notice the way that Kakashi kept sending him concerned and odd glances. Actually, they are all acting like I'm going to die any moment. Everyone ready? The mind reader inquired as he started his jutsu. Obito prayed that this would work out as it should. Naruto? Naruto? He cried out mentally. I have absolutely no clue if you can hear me, but they are coming, so maybe it is better if yo. He felt a familiar hand appear on top his head, and in a swirling sensation he was pulled back into the darkness. Naruto. Hovering over the odd pond, somehow he could see what happened as if he were looking out of his own eye that he had suddenly managed to conjure out of nowhere in one of the training field. Naruto couldn't help but shake his head at the mess that they had gotten into. Something tells me that they will keep hovering around me for a long time. He sighed heavily. This sucks. He flopped back down in the grass and put an arm over his eyes and groaned. How will I ever be able to beat that Madara bastard? He cried out in frustration, his anger leaking through. Clenching his fist, he peeked from under his arm up to the stars that were always there, urging them to provide him some inspiration. How the hell will I be able to become strong enough in such short amount of time? That should take years of training. I don't have that. There is no way that I can put years of training in a shorter amount of time. His eyes widened as a thought suddenly struck him. Of course. He flew up into sitting position as he cried out. How the hell could he forget his own favorite jutsu? I need my chakra. Yes, finding his chakra was the key. However, he would first have to seal himself in this mind if he was going to release it. After all, if his theory was right, he was connected to the chakra, and if the chakra somehow managed to leave the body, there might be a chance that he would go along with it. No can do. He quickly got back to his feet. I will need to do this as quickly as possible. So he would only have to wait for this whole ruckus to get over with, for Obito to get back, before starting with the seal. He quickly leaned back over to the pond to see what he had missed during his unexpected enlightenment. Naruto? Naruto? Obito's voice echoed oddly through the clearing. I have absolutely no clue if you can hear me, but they are coming, so maybe it is better if yo. Though he was still startled, Naruto somehow wasn't surprised that he was blown off his feet as something suddenly collided into his back. His luck had taken a turn for the worst ever since he got to the past after all. That didn't stop him from being surprised by the direction which Obito came from, since it forced them to land right into the water. He had barely the time to remember some of the memories he had as being Obito before the two presences that had tagged along with Obito arrived as well. Coughing loudly, Naruto broke to the surface of the water, having morphed into Obito's mirroring image with the scars once more. Ugh, what the hell? He complained as he pushed away from the younger scarless boy. You really don't have to keep attacking me like that, you know. His current twin groaned in protest and gave him a little push of his own. It's not my fault that you keep getting in my way. Both Obitos glared at each other as they got out of the water, not even noticing that their shared mindscape was allowing them to dry within seconds. TCH, it's not like I'm getting in the way of anything important. Naruto had to repress the amused smirk that dared to slip on his lips. Are you implying that I'm not important? The younger Obito growled slightly, but Naruto could see the playful glint in his eye. The time traveler carefully tapped his chin with his finger, looking up thoughtfully. Well, those are your words, not mine, not that I dare to disagree with you, thou dash dot. There was only a short cry to warn him before he was tackled. Laughing softly, he rolled along with the tackle and tried to subdue Obito. Obito, having immediately noted the challenge, played along with much enthusiasm. As they rolled over the ground, Naruto couldn't help but notice the comical expressions of his future father and Inoichi. Wrestling playfully in a ninja-like fashion, which would look like really mean and painful to normal citizens, they continued to try to overpower each other. With a final growl, Naruto twisted Obito's arm behind him and made sure that he was unable to move. Give up yet? He asked with a smirk, knowing that he had him. No way. Before Naruto could give a playful pull to make him reconsider, a hand grasped the back on his collar and he was suddenly pulled rather roughly away from the younger teen. Stop that. What? The scarred ninja questioned defensively, struggling momentarily against the man's grip, not realizing what the problem was. He stared in bewilderment at his father, who had just stepped between the two Obitos. Obito, who at first matched his expression, could help but smirk at him. Huh? He called out smugly. Yes, stop that. He mocked Naruto with a smirk. TCH, hiding behind your sensei, how brave of you. Obito scowled slightly at that reply. I would have gotten you back anyway. Oh really? I don't tea. A tug on his collar cut him off as Minato interrupted him. Obito-kun. The tone was serious and caught both their attention without much effort. Naruto didn't even pause to react to the name and copied Obito's reaction to his name being called. Yes, they echoed. The two blondes that were studying them carefully seemed to be slightly caught off guard at their behavior. Stop fighting. We are here to help you. Inoichi agreed with Minato. Help with what? Naruto questioned, playing his role as the confused and more cautious counterpart effortlessly. There was a brief silence before Inoichi spoke up again. You do realize that it is not normal to have two personalities in a mind, don't you? Both Obitos shared a look, knowing very well that there was also a certain furry presence in this mind without the other two knowing. Not really, I guess. Obito agreed and Naruto nodded slowly before glaring at the two. Naruto was the one with the scars, so it would be his role to become the more wary of the two. It would only be natural since the scarred Obito did not have the close bonds of trust that Obito had developed over the years. With his extra life experience, it would not be difficult for the time traveler to act like that anyway. However surprising it may sound, Naruto might act like a naive fool a lot, but he was very much aware of the dark and cruel world out there. Hopefully this would make ninja like Minato a bit less suspicious if he were to act differently than Obito would have, chalking it up to his wariness. Why does that matter? What the hell do you want from us? Naruto decided to get straight to the point. He tried not to react to the frown that appeared on his father's face. Obito-kun. He carefully stated, pointedly looking at him to show which Obito he was talking to. Do you remember everything that happened before your accident? No. Just a little bit, but the rest disappeared. Naruto plainly answered, which caused Obito to frown slightly at him. His father turned to the Uchiha. Do you know what happened after the accident? Not much. His student admitted but shrugged. That doesn't really matter, does it? It does. The Yamanaka spoke up, his tone severe. Why? I remember. Obito spoke up, making sure to sound confused. Naruto couldn't help but smirk mentally at the convincing tone. The brat could act better than Naruto had hoped he could. Yes, but... And I remember the other part. We are a part of us, right? Naruto cut the man off. He had to make sure that they wouldn't start messing with this mind. It was under enough stress as it was. If it weren't for Naruto's presence, which was used to deal with mental strain, which in turn allowed Obito's brain to adapt to his experience, it would have faltered a long time ago. Obito-kun. His father started slowly, trying to calm him down, but he wouldn't have it. No. You want me to leave, don't you? You want him. He gestured to his current twin. To re-emerge as the real Obito. We are not trying to make you fade away. You are part of him, you will not disappear. Inoichi tried to pacify Naruto, but it only allowed Naruto to act angrier, knowing full well that that was not going to happen in his case. Bullshit. Leave us alone. We have to insist the. Shut up. He growled. No, you listen to me, Obito-kun. Minato interrupted him, his face suddenly closer to Naruto's and looking very serious, which startled Naruto. He grasped Naruto's shoulders and looked him right in the eye, his grip too firm to slip away from him. I do not want to lose you, Obito-kun. Not again was unspoken. You two might be stable now, but your situation might not remain stable forever. You could lose your mind. This is dangerous. We could lose you. Your team. He paused for a moment as he chose his next words more carefully. Your family too, we care about you. Naruto was speechless. He had not expected for his father to give him such an inspirational speech. He opened his mouth for a moment before closing it. His eye flickered over his father's face, taking in the sincere expression that was present. This is not good. I can't allow him to do this. He reminded himself loudly. No matter how much he wanted to make his father happy, he had his own survival and actually Konoha's and his father's as well to worry about. So the time traveler pushed all these negative emotions to the front of his mind, causing his teeth to grind and his eye to flash angrily. You don't know anything. He hissed at the man, causing him to flinch. We can't merge. Accept it and go away. I will fix this. I will protect Obito against the dangers out there and don't you dare try stopping me. He continued, trying to pull away from his father. They continued to stare at each other for a while before Minato let out a heavy sigh and let him go. Staying just a few seconds longer to show him that he was standing his ground, Naruto brushed past his father and decided that he needed some distance from the men. Sorry, Dad. He couldn't help but think as he glanced over his shoulder, looking angrier than he really was, as it was actually his frustration that was leaking through. Obito's eyes met his ego for a moment, who had nodded encouraging at him, giving him a slightly grim smile in support before Naruto stalked off. But there are just things that you won't understand, no matter how big of a genius you are. Minato. He couldn't help but feel helpless as he watched an alter ego of his student walk away from him. His heart clenched as he remembered the look that he had seen in the boy's eye just before he had become angry at him. He wasn't sure whether the boy realized it or not, but the desperation, fear, and hopelessness in his student's alter ego had been visible for a mere second. This had been long enough for Minato to pick up. "Why can't you just talk to me?" He couldn't help but mutter under his breath before turning to the other part of his student that had been left behind. "This really is confusing. If this continues, which I hope it won't, we will have to think of a different name to call one of them." He muttered to Inoichi while Obito watched them somewhat curiously before watching his twin walk away, most likely wondering what they were saying. "No, you can't," Inoichi objected sternly. "Who?" Minato nodded in understanding. "You're right, we can't. We should prevent the gap between them from growing." He corrected himself. Inoichi nodded at his friend, glad that he understood, and waved to Obito to come closer so they could speak more comfortably. "So he is the one in charge?" he asked. "Yeah, he is." Obito agreed, sitting down to play with the grass. Exchanging glances, the two elder ninjas sat down as well. Minato looked Obito in the eyes for a while and suddenly realized how odd it actually was that this Obito still had both eyes. He had noticed before, of course. He was a ninja after all, but he had not paid it as much attention as he maybe should have, probably because he had known Obito for far longer with both eyes than with just one. What would that mean? Does it represent something? I would have to Inoichi when he get back. He mused as he waited for his student to speak up. Said student stared at him for a while before looking questioningly at Inoichi, who took it as an invitation to start asking more questions. "Don't you feel upset about it?" Inoichi asked carefully. The last thing they needed was for the two to start fighting. Obito looked surprised for a while before laughing, taking both men off guard completely. "No, I'm glad." Seeing the disbelief on the men's faces, Obito merely smiled at them. He broke off some grass and raised his hand to let it blow away with the wind that suddenly passed them. "He saved me," he admitted to the men. "He is my other half. Besides, he is right. The two of us won't be able to merge anymore." "Why?" the Yamanaka inquired, sounding worried but slightly curious at the same time. "I can't explain it," Obito admitted as broke off more grass and started rubbing it between his fingers. There was an awkward silence. "Don't worry about me," Obito suddenly spoke up, focusing on his sensei. "I'm all right. I need him to take care of me." "Why?" "Because..." Obito paused for a moment. "I am like a baby when I'm out there, awake," he admitted. "That's what happened today." "You actually got separated." Inoichi tried to confirm his theory. "The part that you represent had been stored away, and when pushed too quickly you emerged." "What?" Obito asked, confused. "Wait, no. I was already like this when..." He frowned. His student waved over to where the other Obito had disappeared, took control of the body. This time he looked directly at his sensei. "I was dead," he finally admitted, causing a shiver to run down Minato's spine. "He was the only thing left, and it is because of him that I'm still here. I am trapped in my mind until I learn to connect to the outside again." He continued, though the more he explained, the more unsure he became. "At least, that's what I think is happening." "You were right." Obito's voice came from another direction, letting them know that Scar, Minato decided to secretly call him that, had returned. "Naruto." Obito was right. Naruto and Kyuubi had silently discussed what had just occurred a while ago. He had shared a couple of theories with the fox after being unable to find a source of entertainment while Obito had been in control. The fox had barely been willing to discuss it but reluctantly went along with the conversation. Though the demon had gone back into hiding in the shadows as soon as he was sure that the monkey boy would leave him alone for a while. Leaving Naruto bored once again. Stargazing was only interesting for a period amount of time, leaving him restless and bored. Just Naruto's luck that it seemed that time in his mind did not pass as quickly as in the outer world. At least this seemed to be the case when Naruto was not trying to keep up with the outer world. The moment that he had found that pond, everything had gone by a lot faster. Naruto hadn't even tried to find an explanation for this odd phenomenon and merely accepted this gift for what it was. Maybe if he was very bored, he might try finding out. Pushing these thoughts to the back of his mind, Naruto slowly sat down next to Obito, creating some distance between him and the mind reader. Naruto was still nervous around the man, afraid that he would jump up at any moment, point his finger at him and yell, "You are not Obito. You are a time-traveling spirit that needs to be driven out of this body." Yeah, it probably would never happen, but then again, look around. If his mind could copy this clearing, he was surely able to think up these kinds of reactions. Shaking his head slightly, he started to copy Obito and absently started to break off blades of grass. Before he released them though, he started to pull them apart in different pieces and then let them fall down in pieces. The two blonde men gave him a look that let him know that they would be very careful around him. Naruto plainly tried to ignore it. "You could say that I am in charge of the body." Naruto started to explain, noticing that Inoichi leaned forward in interest ever so slightly as the man realized that he was going to explain the working of the mind. He shot him a glance but continued. "Obito," he gestured to the younger teen, "has more control of the mind because he has the largest share in the original memories. You could see him as the original owner of the body." Naruto had to keep his voice clear and his face straight as he twisted the truth for the two observant ninja. During his absence, however, he somehow lost connection with his body, hiding in his mind instead. "This was what caused me to come here." Naruto waved at himself and stared with his single eye at Inoichi, who was now following his explanation with a frown. "He will need to learn how to take control of his body again before we might be able to, as you call it, become one." "Might? I'm not promising you anything," he told them silently in between the lines. "Why is that impossible now?" Inoichi didn't even pause to confront him with that question, copying Naruto's own straight-to-the-point approach. "If you are, as you call it, the body, and he is the mind, what stops you from merging?" Naruto kept silent, for a moment having no clue what to say to the mind reader, so instead he applied his poker face and made it look like he was simply too stubborn to explain. "Is the seal still activated?" Minato suddenly interrupted. "You died, but somehow the seal allowed you to split up into two alter egos by keeping Obito's previous memories from your current ones. If it is still activated." "Well, Naruto could work with that. I guess that is a way to put it. You will just have to take our word, you can't help us. Please don't try to find a way to deactivate the seal," he warned Minato. "At least not right now. We will fix this on our own," Naruto stated, putting a hand on Obito's shoulder to show his support to the younger half. "We just need a bit of time." Naruto's eye turned serious and determined. "That's my promise. You have my word as a ninja." He ignored the dry look he received from both ninja from Konoha. Naruto continued, giving them a pointed look. The mind reader must have realized that forcing them was not an option, so with a heavy sigh, the matter was settled. "I will give you some time to work out your problem. You are not insane, like I had feared you might be for a moment." Both Obitos twitched. "But I will be keeping an eye on you, and as soon as you become even the slightest threat to Konoha." He trailed off, knowing well enough that he didn't have to finish that sentence, though it did earn him a sharp glance from his father. Naruto bowed to the man, knowing that the Yamanaka meant every word of it. "I understand." "I do too." Obito copied him. Inoichi stared at the two before nodding slowly and standing up. "Just remember that you two are still the same person." Naruto and Obito glanced at each other and wisely stayed silent. So, after reassuring Inoichi that it would probably be Naruto that would wake up in charge of the body, the matter was settled. Minato gave each of them a quick hug as if to show them that he was there for them both before stepping back so that Inoichi could cancel the jutsu. Though the ninja were less than happy with the current situation as they disappeared, both Obitos couldn't help but let out a sigh of relief that the matter was over with. "Well, that went pretty well. Right?" Obito spoke up, rubbing his neck as he looked at his so-called caretaker. Naruto's form morphed, growing taller and changing color until he was back into his own body's shape. Running a hand through his spiky blonde hair, the ninja chuckled ever so slightly. "You mean that we barely saved our hides? We will have to work on your control for a long time. I am not going to lie. It might take years." The look in Obito's eyes turned slightly desperate. Naruto sighed sadly. "We will find a way, Obito-kun. I'm not going to let you sit here the whole time like this. You will be able to watch everything." He pointed to the pond. "And I'm sure there will be a way for us to communicate." Obito nodded as Naruto slung his arm over the boy's shoulders in a comforting fashion. "Well then, let's rest for a bit. Then we will annoy the fox for a while to talk about this sealing process, and then we need to go search." He stated with so much energy that Obito even doubted that he needed to rest. Search? Obito blinked. For what? Naruto smirked. My chakra. If we get hold of that after I got sealed to you, then I will be able to show you the absolutely most awesome jutsu ever invented. Obito's eyes widened in excitement. What jutsu? The blonde's smirk widened, even turning slightly feral as he thought back to the possibilities that would open up for him. Kagabushin no jutsu. There was a dramatic silence in which Naruto was daydreaming about the Possibilites and Obito just staring ahead blankly. Obito blinked slowly before he glanced at his friend and spoke up to break the silence, his voice full of disbelief. Your absolutely most awesome jutsu ever invented is a bushin? Chi, you just wait, Obito. You will be surprised. Well, I guess we have rested enough. Let's go and bother Fuzzy. Naruto called out, practically bouncing away. Shaking his head, Obito had no choice but to follow. Well, something tells me that I won't get bored for a while. Minato a day after Obito regained consciousness. No. The voice was strong and determined with an underlying tone of disbelief and anger. There is no way that I will allow that. Minato thought, practically boiling with frustration as he looked at the man he had always looked up to. He wasn't really angry with the man, well he was, but he couldn't blame the man for what he had said because even though his emotions were peaking, Minato was still able to think rationally. From his own experiences in life, Minato knew that it was totally understandable for the man to be concerned about Minato's student. He was the Hokage. It was his responsibility to make sure all threats were taken care of and to protect the village that he loved. But that didn't mean that the Sandaime couldn't be wrong though. Two furious blue eyes were practically boring into the calm darker eyes of the elder. The tension in the room was great. One could probably cut it with a kunai if they wanted to. The two men stood across each other, the desk between them as if it was acting as a symbol to show the position of power they were in. Both of them stood tall, showing the other that their resolve in this argument. The Sandaime's pipe lay forgotten on the desk, discarded as soon as the Sandaime saw the other man step into the room. Minato stood with clenched fists that slowly unclenched in an attempt to appear calm, but he was well aware that the current Hokage was not fooled at all. After what felt like 10 minutes of silence, the elder man sighed and rubbed his forehead, having taken off the hat he usually had on. It now lay on top of the desk in front of the man as if it was showing that he was still in charge. But that still didn't mean that he wasn't wrong. It was a custom between a Hokage and the chosen successor. For the same reason, the Ambu had left the room, leaving the two men to their private conversation. It was a show of trust and allowance to speak up their mind, which was exactly what he was doing. Minato-ke. He is not dangerous, Hokage-sama. The blonde didn't shout, nor did he hiss in anger, but there was an icy tone in his voice that even made the Hokage feel slightly uncomfortable. He stood on very shaky ground with his future successor right now. Said successor was a very good ninja, in control of his emotions in even the tightest situations when needed. However, now was not one of those times when it was necessary. The Hokage gave Minato a look and tapped 3 times on the desk to regain his attention. He has a seal in his mind. He has 2 personalities. He has been gone for months. Who knows what could have happened to him? He could be. He is not dangerous. The blonde repeated, cutting the respectful honorific off, which was something he normally never did. Though the Sandaime normally didn't threaten to destroy the life of a precious person either. The lips of the Sandaime thinned. I am very aware of your opinion, Minato-kun. I don't like this either. Obito-kun is a very good boy, strong and determined. Even in times that I lectured him on behavior, I could clearly see the will of fire present in that boy. Still, that does not mean that he currently is an unknown factor. Putting him in confinement may be harmful in your point of view, but we will be able to provide some help for him. It might take years. Minato objected. You have seen what that place does to ninja. Many have been cured. Many have gone crazy. By the time he comes out of there, his will of fire will be gone. Minato objected icily, knowing very well that the man in front of him had a soft spot for the will of fire. Minato didn't twitch as he saw Hokage's eyes sharpen before studying him carefully. The man was anything but unobservant, and the blonde knew that he was more than aware of what Minato was trying to pull. That didn't mean that he wouldn't agree with the blonde though. Don't misunderstand my reason for summoning you here, Minato-kun. Sarutobi told the ninja, his tone turning slightly more authoritative. I was saying that I was considering the option. I was not ordering you to put him there. I have asked you to come here to discuss possibilities and your own opinion. I have already talked to Inoichi-san about his findings. So calm down and tell me what you found. Minato kept silent, eyeing the man in front of him carefully. All right, so maybe he was right about the fact that Minato might have become defensive a bit too quickly. That didn't change the blonde's opinion in the slightest, though. Both of them relaxed ever so slightly and the tension between them dropped to a more comfortable level. On an unspoken agreement, Minato sunk down in one of the two chairs in front of the desk while Sarutobi walked around the desk to sit closer to him. There was another staring contest between the two, but this time without any glaring, and this time it was Minato who broke eye contact with a sigh. Hokage-sama, you have to understand. The seal is not a harmful one. Its only function is to hide memories in his brain. There is of course the possibility that there are some harmful memories being hidden, but you know as much as I do that Obito would be one of the last to fight against Konoha. Blackmailing can go far. He is loyal. Minato reassured him. The man hummed in agreement and momentarily stared out of the window. I can easily admit that he is one of the most likable of the Uchiha. Minato couldn't help but snort slightly on that comment. At some moments he can be the most naive and even the most annoying one as well, but somehow his presence can be almost addictive. Certainly in more depressive situations like. He didn't finish the sentence, but there was no need to tell the man that he was thinking about the war. The Sandaime nodded in agreement. I never really understood how he managed to keep so positive, certainly not with the whole Uchiha affair going on. The blonde's eyes glazed over as he thought back to the times that he had stumbled across a crying Obito who had desperately tried to hide his own tears from him. Obito's bonds with his family were not good. There had even been a time where Obito had almost been disowned, which was why Obito had been so focused on obtaining his Sharingan. Obito had never told the rest of his team though, seeing as it was taboo in his clan and he preferred not to focus on his problems more than necessary, which would explain the happy attitude he nearly always showed. Speaking about the clan, do you want to keep it quiet? The blonde suddenly asked, referring to Obito's return. Minato knew that the team he had been traveling with, a team of Anbu, had been ordered to keep quiet. While Minato knew that they would, he wasn't sure what the man in front of him was planning. What would you do, Minato? The blonde was surprised by the question. His surprise must have showed because there was an amused twinkle in the Hokage's eyes. You will take up the title soon. What would you do? Minato turned pensive for a moment before speaking. I would keep it quiet for the moment. From what information I have been able to gather, most of the clan has made it clear that they don't care about the loser. Minato said, looking angry as he remembered their reaction upon hearing the news. The Uchiha clan actually seemed to be angrier that Kakashi received their precious eye than anything else, except for the few who had been close to him. He knew that Obito's aunt and uncle who had taken him in after the death of his parents were devastated at the news of Obito's death, but their happiness wouldn't currently make up for all the trouble that would come with the news of Obito's survival. No, the best thing to do was to wait. He glanced at the Sandaime. Maybe it would be better for me to solve this in the first part of taking up leadership. He thought, feeling slightly pained at this thought. The first few months of the new reign of a newly appointed Hokage was a period of time in which the previous Hokage would assist the newly appointed Hokage with his duties, though Minato knew that he would be always open to Sarutobi's advice. It was this period that was often filled with the biggest changes for the system. There were a lot of changes that Minato had in mind himself. He was more than aware that council thought that he was getting soft and wanted to take advantage of it. I would wait for a while and then discuss his wishes. The Hokage eyed him carefully and smiled, making Minato wonder if he knew what he was thinking. Sarutobi eventually hummed in agreement. I agree with you, but we have to get back on track, Minato-kun, because it is not only the hidden memories that worry me. He leaned forward, arms leaning on his legs as he directed his attention to the seal specialist. Tell me, Minato-kun, what else could the seal hide? Minato frowned. Besides memories? Possibly a part of his mind. He paused as he suddenly realized something. Spiritual chakra. He breathed. If his body is fit enough. Everyone in the shinobi world was aware of the fact that chakra was a product of spiritual energy and physical energy mixing together. However, the proportion of both variables was often not the same. No matter how much someone pushed themselves physically, there was a certain limit at how much chakra one produced. This was because little physical energy was needed compared to how much spiritual energy was needed to produce chakra. Obito, while currently not being in perfect shape, was fit enough to produce a lot more chakra than his previous level if he had the spiritual energy to do so. However, the presence of spiritual chakra, especially if one was unaware of it, could be very dangerous. But even if this is the case, Minato started carefully, trying to prevent jumping to conclusions. They were both aware that they were talking about very rare cases, but seeing as they were ninja, they tended to extra careful with the what-ifs. Then the seal I put on him will make sure that his chakra pathways won't overload. Even if there is a sudden increase in his chakra, it would be converted into harmless energy, he reminded the man. Indeed, but that is not the thing that worries me. I myself have come across only a few people that could hide spiritual chakra that way. The Hokage confirmed and reached towards his pipe. He took it but didn't light it. Minato looked at him questioningly, having a bad feeling about what Sarutobi was about to say. These were people that are forced to share their own mindscape with another source of energy. Sarutobi slowly said and sighed, staring at the blonde directly into his eyes. Jinchuriki. Minato froze. Jinchuriki? Obito? No way. Minato objected automatically and shared this doubt. He would have never survived that. Only the Uzumaki are able to accept the burden of Kyuubi's chakra from each other without being killed, and even then the ritual takes nearly 6 months. Kushina told me herself. He muttered. The only chance that a new Jinchuriki would survive is if it were an infant with undeveloped chakra pathways. His medical examination has shown the presence of damaged pathways, yet they are slowly recovering. The chance of this being the case is so small that it is practically impossible. Minato argued. I haven't seen anything in his mind that showed the presence of a demon either. It could be hidden in the seal, the Sandaime offered, causing Minato to frown. Then a very good seal master would have made the seal to hide such a presence. I would have to take another look. Inoichi has put a limit on the mind jutsu for at least 3 weeks, maybe even longer unless it is absolutely necessary. The latest entry was strenuous, seeing the condition he was in. Minato nodded and looked him in the eye. No, we don't want to fry his brain. He agreed. Still, Obito a Jinchuriki? He repeated, still not convinced. Even if it were, which I don't believe is the case, which demon would it be? He questioned, indirectly challenging the man's theories. The Sandaime shook his head, unable to answer the question. I agree that this is all very unlikely. I actually don't believe it, but we have to keep our minds open. If I remember correctly, you were the one that said that nearly nothing is impossible. Look at you now, Yellow Flash. Minato chuckled at that. Indeed. He muttered, before his expression turned into a pensive one. He certainly had a lot to think about. One thing is clear. I will have to keep an eye on him. So what do we do, Hokage-sama? We do what Inoichi advised. Let him regain his memories, but keep an eye on him. He is loyal to Konoha and probably won't become a danger to the village, but I am more concerned that he will become a danger to himself. Minato sighed. I still clearly remember the first time I met him. The moment that I saw him laughing awkwardly after he failed to pull a prank. I just knew that he was going to be trouble, but I never imagined him to be this much trouble. Naruto. It had been nearly 2 weeks. Nearly 2 weeks since Obito had accidentally awakened while having control, or more specifically, he had nearly no control at all. And Naruto was getting annoyed. They were constantly watching him nearly every moment he was consciousness. There was a very naive part of his brain that had secretly hoped that they wouldn't be keeping an eye on him like his more realistic thoughts had told him. That they had something else to focus on, or that they would trust him enough to. He didn't actually know what he imagined would happen. He had just hoped he would get more privacy. Unfortunately for Naruto, this was not the case. It was like they were stalking them, afraid that he would disappear or go crazy if they didn't keep an eye on him. Some moments, Naruto felt like they thought he was a spy. He had to admit that he liked the attention at first, a lot even. He thoroughly enjoyed spending time with his father most of all. The smiles he received, the moments that the blonde ruffled his hair in an affectionate manner. Even spending time with his former sensei was enjoyable, though he was acting awkward from time to time, as if Kakashi was trying to do something but was constantly changing his mind. Naruto could see it by the looks he had been giving him when Kakashi thought he didn't notice. Obito and he had decided to give him time though. He would mention it when he was ready and otherwise they would just have to kick his butt again, after they had done some training. So the first few days were wonderful. But after 3 days waking up with a cheerful Minato standing next to his bed to let him know that breakfast was ready, Naruto and Obito started to realize that he hadn't had a real moment of privacy besides falling asleep or going to the toilet. Naruto even mentioned to Obito that he suspected that they still kept track of his chakra signature in these cases, and Obito, who was nearly naive when it came to his friends, couldn't disagree with him. Once the realization was there, it was difficult for them not to notice. If Minato wasn't hanging around and training him, he was back more or less back to his original level before the accident. Then Kakashi coincidentally pop up. If not Kakashi practically acting like his shadow, then Rin came to have dinner with him and to heal any strains that the training put on him. He appreciated their concern, but it was getting on his nerves. He had so many things to do and so little time. He needed those damn clones. You know, after you said that you could fight SS-class ninja like Madara, I thought that slipping away wouldn't be that difficult for you. Naruto's eyebrow twitched as Obito spoke up from his mind. During the last 2 weeks, the two of them had found out how to communicate in their thoughts. It had relieved Obito from a lot of boredom and made Naruto feel less guilty about being in charge all of the time. "Kyuubi agrees with me, by the way," Obito told him smugly. "Sure he does," Naruto grumbled. "I would be able to slip away in 3 seconds as soon as you get that damn gate open." He jabbed back. "I already modified the annoying seal on the back of my neck, which took a whole night by the way, so bother me when you have made yourself useful." Obito snorted. "Tsh, I'm trying, geez. No need to get your panty." "Obito," Naruto cut him off. "Please just continue trying, alright? I'm sorry, but I'm just getting so antsy here. Why can't Kakashi just leave me alone for a second?" Well, he surely never acted like that before. He was always very obsessed with the rules, so maybe he needs a replacement. Obito joked as he continued to do whatever he was doing. "Always the obsessions," Naruto muttered under his breath. "Obsessions?" a voice inquired. Naruto turned his head toward Kakashi, who was leaning against the other side of the tree they were sitting under. The teenager was slightly roughed up, having had a spar with Obito just half an hour ago. A muscle in his neck protested against the movement, letting him know that he had been testing his limits as well. Rin would probably come by soon and heal their bruises. Even though it wasn't necessary, she always insisted, especially when it came to Obito. It reminded Naruto much of Sakura, though she usually would give him a lot of bruised cheeks as well. "Obito? What? What about obsessions?" Unsure as to why Kakashi was so interested about his mumbling, the black-haired ninja smiled sheepishly at him. "Yeah. You know obsessions?" "Yeah. What about it?" Naruto blinked as he received an unimpressed and inquiring stare that he recalled his future sensei often giving him. It was moments like this that made Naruto realize that the young boy in front of him would eventually grow up to be the scarecrow that he had looked up to. "Air." Kakashi stared at him before he turned away, staring at the top of the trees that rustling in the wind. Naruto followed his example, deciding that Kakashi was letting it go. He took a deep breath to relax his body and started to prepare for a quick visit to Obito to see if he was booking process with the dam block on his chakra. "I'm not," Obito dryly told him. "Well, I will come and help then." "I'm still trying. Don't be such a pushover," Obito complained. "Don't be such a crybaby," Naruto replied, not really meaning it. "Tch, scaredy cat," Obito jabbed back with practiced ease. Naruto smirked mentally. "Teary eyes. Whisker face." They continued to exchange insults without actually meaning it, both releasing some tension they were starting to feel with the pressure that they felt. "Dope," they both ended up saying at the same time and chuckled slightly. Just before Naruto thought that he was ready to slip back into his meditative state, he was distracted when Kakashi suddenly spoke up. "I'm sorry. Huh. Obito shared his confusion as well, and Naruto wondered whether he should pretend to be asleep. The tone that Kakashi had used was pretty meaningful though. Plus Obito mentally chided at him for even thinking about ignoring an apology of Kakashi of all people. So Naruto guessed he would have to face it. If Kakashi decided to share his inner conflict, then he should grab the chance he got before he changed his mind. Ignoring Obito's grumbling, Naruto lazily opened his eye and glanced at his silver-haired teammate. What? Kakashi's lips thinned for a moment before he sat up and looked down at him. I'm sorry, he repeated firmly. For what? Naruto inquired, not sure what he was apologizing for. The ninja looked slightly annoyed by the confusion that he showed but answered nonetheless. I'm sorry for not listening to you on the mission. I'm sorry for being such a... He took a breath and continued. Stuck-up prat all the time. Kakashi glared slightly as he saw his teammate's eyes widen at the name he called himself. I apologize for being obsessed with the rules the whole time. So that is where it came from, Naruto decided. He must have wondered whether I was talking about him. For a while, he simply stared at his future sensei as he let Obito mule about the apologies he got directed at him. Had it not been so serious, Obito would have probably been laughing that Kakashi had just insulted himself, but he was surprisingly quiet. Naruto was not going to decide how to react for this occasion. Kakashi was clearly uncomfortable with waiting, but didn't push him. Are you all right, Obito? Naruto asked, knowing that the boy was still sour about a few points in their history together. There was a moment of silence before Obito spoke up. Yeah, I'm fine. Tell him that it is fine. The original black-haired ninja was clearly trying to brush away the annoyance and frustration that he still felt. Apology accepted. Kakashi's eyes widened slightly at the blunt reply and Naruto promptly closed his eye again. It was easy for him to forgive his sensei. Even though he had looked through the memories of Obito and Obito his, as soon as the Uchiha had awoken they had become more distant. More like seeing them occur as a bystander instead of it being you. Plus he had spent a lot of years with the man, and though Kakashi certainly had his faults, he had helped Naruto a lot, and for that Naruto could only be thankful. Are you coming or not? Obito asked, clearly trying to distract himself from what just happened. He would think about it when Naruto was done visiting. I'm trying. Why? Naruto frowned when his focus was once again disrupted. Why what? He returned as his only eye glanced dryly at his sensei. Why do you forgive me so easily? What are teammates for? That silenced Kakashi for a while, but he still wasn't satisfied. You only saved me because you thought it was your job as a teammate? He asked up, sounding somewhat bitter. What? This time Naruto was confused. No. He answered for Obito, conveying the offended tone that it had carried. Naruto tried to look Kakashi in the eye, but the ninja wasn't looking at him. Instead, the silver-haired boy was glaring at the space in front of him, his face twisted in a troubled frown. The sight made Naruto promptly give up on trying to meditate. It was clear that Kakashi needed to talk, and the time traveler was planning to make sure that he did. I did what was right, Naruto told him. In reality, he was slowly letting Obito take charge of the conversation, following his directions and relaying his answers. It was odd to act like that, but it was not as difficult as he had assumed. It wasn't really only following verbal instructions either. There was a subtle way of communication through the mind that allowed Naruto to pick up emotions, images, thoughts, and intentions from Obito. It had taken a while to practice, but they were getting there. Thanks, Naruto. No problem. Obito glanced at Kakashi, frowning slightly as he was clearly ignoring him. He contemplated on calling him names, but he felt that Naruto disapproved to that method, so he moved for another. Approach. He was going to make sure that his friend would stop with that annoying hovering of his so that they were finally going to get some peace. But first he had to make sure that the ninja wouldn't ignore him. What is really bothering you, Kashi? The nickname caught Kakashi off guard, and he turned to the boy next to him in surprise. He studied the teen's expression carefully before he visibly relaxed. How are you able to be in control of your body? He questioned, ignoring Obito's inquiry. This question surprised the two of them, especially Obito, who had not expected that people would be able to see the difference between them. Somehow it made him feel good that the difference was clear though, and that Kakashi seemed to prefer him to Naruto. Meanwhile, Naruto sighed mentally, understanding the feelings that Obito felt but was slightly disappointed by the preference. No brooding, Naruto, he reminded himself, to which Obito winced. Sorry. It's all right. My other me is following my instructions? It sounded more like a question. We figured this trick out over the last 2 weeks and I have been practicing so I can guide him somewhat. It's difficult to explain. He waved his hand to dismiss it. Still, what is bothering you? There was a moment that the two simply stared at each other, Obito waiting patiently while Kakashi was pondering how to say it. He slowly moved up his headband so that he could stare at him with his Sharingan, which made Obito shiver slightly. It was still so odd to see his Sharingan like that. Whatever they had been expecting, Naruto and Obito both hadn't expected him to be so blunt though. Do you want your eye back? Obito was clearly taken back by the question, which made him accidentally slip back into the mind. Naruto was caught off guard by the loss of support, which weakened the arms he had been leaning on, causing him to land on his back. He soon regained his bearings easily enough though and stared with a knowing look at the teenager who was now crouched on his feet next to him. The moment that Kakashi looked in his eyes, he tensed up again and his eyes became more wary. No. Naruto answered quickly, ignoring the look he had received. I wasn't asking you. Naruto mentally flinched at the tone but tried not to let it bother him too much. What are you talking about? Naruto tried while comforting the panicking Obito as he regained his posture. I can see the difference, you know, Kakashi muttered as he stood up. Naruto's eyes saddened and he felt a sense of rejection from the sentence alone. Interesting, he said, brushing it off once more. A troubled flash of emotions appeared in Kakashi's eyes, but it quickly disappeared. With a huff, the boy glared up at the sky as he spoke. I want the old Obito back. It was him who gave me his eye. I'm not going to make the decision for him, Naruto told him with a glare, feeling offended by the unspoken assumption. Then do what you did before. Obito was caught off guard by your subtle question. We can't do it right now. Naruto cut back, annoyed that Kakashi thought that it was so easy. He never realized that his sensei really had been a prat when he had been young. The jab made Kakashi scoff at him before he glared at Naruto and challenged him. Why don't you want to merge Scar? Scar? They name me Scar of all things. What are you talking about? You are the one in control. It is because of you that you have two personalities. Naruto remained silent at the accusation and moved to stand up as well. Kakashi didn't tense to indicate that he wanted to fight, but Naruto was not going to be caught unprepared if it suddenly came to it. I'm still Obito, he told the young teen, not really lying. After all, he was physically, he reminded himself. You are a part of Obito, Kakashi protested. I have heard what happened. You are just a fragment that came into existence after the mission. Naruto felt angry with the young boy in front of him at first, but then forcefully calmed himself. It was difficult to forget that the boy in front of him, no matter how wise and knowledgeable he currently was and would be and had been in the future, he was still a boy. He was clearly upset with what happened, but Naruto was not going to let this brat tell him what to do. You don't know anything, he growled at him, catching the silver-haired ninja off guard. You assume that we can just merge and that everything will return to normal. Don't try to object, he told the teen. As Kakashi opened his mouth to probably do just that, not really realizing that his posture changed into a more authoritative one. The fact that you offered back your eye tells me enough. You also refer my near death, Kakashi winced. As the mission, deal with the mistakes that happened. Don't blame it on yourself and don't take out your anger on me, Baka, because I am part of him no matter what will happen. Naruto turned his back on Kakashi and angrily walked away. I'm sorry, Naruto. Obito quietly spoke up from his mind. Just please be quiet for a while? I will find a place to hide and help you with that damn block. Naruto grumbled as he went through a couple of hand seals and let the wind take him away. Kakashi. I didn't mean it like that. Kakashi thought with a touch of guilt and surprise as he mentally repeated what Obito, or at least Scar, had just told him. Kakashi was not sure what to do as he watched him go. When Obito reached the end clearing though, he suddenly realized that he was actually leaving. His eyes widened with regret and he raised his hand out to him. Obito, wait. There was a slight panic in his voice as he made a move to go after him. Unfortunately, unknown to him, Obito had already finished the hand seals and flashed away, leaving Kakashi behind. Surprised by the unfamiliar jutsu that Obito suddenly could perform, he was too slow to follow him and looked helplessly at the empty space where Obito had just been. Kakashi silently cursed at himself for letting Obito escape and for acting out of hand. He was a ninja, damn it. Why had he let his emotions taken control over him? He hated feeling this twinge of guilt too because Scar had been right. Kakashi did wish that he didn't exist because it would mean that everything would be back to normal. If he only had kept his mouth shut about the eye then. Kakashi-kun. The silver-haired ninja swirled around and came face to face with his sensei, who was staring down at him with a stern expression. He immediately felt even guiltier, knowing that he had just said things that he shouldn't have. He had honestly been surprised by the emotions that had just taken control of him. Normally he wouldn't have ever said so many things without properly thinking about it, but when it came to Obito everything seemed so difficult. He winced. "I'm sorry." The blond man still glared slightly at him. "You called him Scar." "I realize that. You know that you shouldn't separate them, Kakashi." The teen was about to agree, but he still felt angry and clenched his hands. "But I can tell the difference," he whispered to his mentor. "They are both Obito. They feel different." Kakashi still objected. It was difficult to describe the difference though. Scar surely looked like Obito and acted like him a lot too, but there was a feeling in it that Kakashi couldn't define. He brushed it aside though, assuming that Minato wouldn't understand, and looked down to the ground. Taking a deep breath, he regained control of his emotions and let the mask of disinterest slip on his face. "I apologize," he said with a soft drawl. "Don't even try that on me." The voice became even sterner, which forced Kakashi to listen. "Look me in the eyes when I talk to you, Jounin." He followed the order easily enough. "I will make sure that you two will talk later, in my presence." He gave him a pointed look as he added the last part. "But first I want you to understand that the eye was a gift. Obito is clearly not expecting you to return it to him. Otherwise he would probably tell you in some way. I just thought." "I know, Kakashi." Minato sighed and ran a hand through his hair. "Look, it is good that you finally share some of your inner conflicts, especially since your father." Kakashi's face automatically went blank at the mention of his father before he forced himself to let it slip from his face. His father was not a traitor, he reminded himself. "Practically raised you as a perfect ninja, but please be careful with letting your frustrations go all at once. Talk to me first if you feel the need to vent, all right?" Kakashi stared at the blue earnest eyes of his teacher, his mentor, and nodded. "Hi, sensei." "Good, now you have been summoned for a mission, so meet me later at the Hokage Tower. I will check up on Obito and meet you there." Naruto. Sitting in another clearing, Naruto finally was able to slip back into his meditative state. It took a while for him to slip into his mind though, seeing as he was constantly distracted by what had just happened to him. He let out a relieved sigh as the feet of his mental representation touched the soft grass of the clearing. Taking a deep breath, he glanced up at the full moon that was always there and then moved towards the forest. Following his instincts, he found Obito sitting in front of a large tree that looked different from the rest. The leaves on this tree were more yellow than the others, some leaves even had a golden hue here and there. Feeling drawn to the tree, Naruto stepped closer. "You managed to make it visible," Naruto commented, glancing at Obito's form which was brooding on the ground. "Yeah. You knew that the question was coming." "I hadn't expected it," Obito denied. "Wait, you knew?" "I was expecting it," Naruto confirmed. "Why didn't you tell me?" Obito protested, putting his hands on his head. "I thought that you knew," Naruto answered. "Besides, it is your choice." "Of course I don't want it back. I'm not going to let him roam around without a second eye that he lost because of me." "So it is guilt then?" "And no." Naruto sighed when the answer came too soon. "You do feel guilty." He pushed, not backing down when Obito glared at him. "So what if I do?" "I'm not saying that I do, but what if? Would it matter? You actually expect me to ask my friend to give me back my eye? Is that what you think of me? Because I'm not going to do it, Naruto. It was a gift. I don't need it any more than him." Obito seemed to be taken back by the smile that he received from Naruto. "I like that answer." "Wait, what?" "I like your attitude, besides." He ruffled the boy's hair, causing him to pout. Q has been muttering about fixing the eye if that is possible. "So it might not be possible." "Nope." "You are awfully calm about it," Obito complained. "Want to know why?" Naruto asked and smirked when the teenager looked at him expectantly. "'Cause you still have your eye," he said, flicking Obito's forehead. The black-haired boy's eyes widened as he touched his forehead. "Think about that for a while," Naruto prodded as he turned back to the block that stood in his way of helping out. "I have to take care of this troublesome obstacle." Putting his hand on the tree's surface, he automatically let out a sigh of relief. This was his chakra. It was his raw, more uncontrollable, and dense spiritual chakra that the body had automatically pushed away to protect itself when he arrived. "Come back," he muttered. "It's all right." It felt odd talking to his chakra like that, but he felt something shift under the tree's surface. Closing his eyes, he leaned against the tree, resting his forehead on the smooth surface. He suddenly felt an urge to breath and followed it without hesitation. The ninja gasped when he felt himself starting to actually absorb his chakra. He felt stronger. He felt energetic. He started to feel hyper, the energy that he had always had difficulty to control as a child. His eyes snapped open when the flow into his body became larger. There was too much to absorb at one time, though. He wasn't sure if he was going to be able to use all of it. Gritting his teeth, he tried not to lose grip against the now burning strain that was pushing against him. He needed to push it back, he realized. He had to make sure that he could access it when he needed it, but he needed it back in storage. "Help me out here, Obito." He growled under his breath and was thankful when Obito almost immediately stood by his side. Pushing his hands against the tree as well, Obito gasped in surprise as he felt the enormous amount of chakra that flowed under the tree's surface. "This is your chakra?" "Yes. No wonder you could make so many clones," the Uchiha muttered as he helped his friend rein in the chakra. Both of them struggled to remain in control, but after an unknown amount of pain, the pressure of the chakra flow dispersed. Pushing most of the chakra back in the tree, it seemed to grow even larger than before. Finally, the two ninja managed to push the last amount of chakra back into the tree. Testing it, Naruto stepped back and only put one hand on the tree. He pulled a little bit of chakra back and was relieved to find that the rest of the chakra didn't crash down on him like before. Sighing in relief, Naruto flopped onto the ground. Now that he was charged with his own chakra, he was practically bouncing with energy, but he was tired at the same time. "Wow!" Obito chuckled right next to him, having followed his example. "I feel somewhat high." Frowning, Naruto glanced to his companion. "What do you mean?" "This amount of power." Obito shook his head. "I take it back, Naruto. No wonder you beat SS Ninja." "Well, the downside is that we have to keep it hidden for a while. We can't run around with such a prominent rise of chakra level." He glanced at Obito. "Which means that you will have to try and make sure that it remains stored in the tree." Obito hummed in agreement. "Do we have to do this often?" he asked, looking slightly reluctant to do it again. "Probably. My chakra is difficult to control. Hopefully we will get better at it in time. We should be able to start training really soon," Naruto said, practically beaming with excitement. The two of them sighed in relief at the same time at the thought of being able to train properly. They would have to work very hard, but that was not going to stop them. "You poked my forehead." Obito suddenly spoke up. "What about it?" Naruto questioned as he started playing with the grass. "I used to do that to Itachi-kun." Naruto glanced at him in surprise. He suddenly remembered a few vague memories that he had looked through. "You are his example, aren't you?" "Yeah," Obito muttered wistfully. "Even though the rest of my family mostly disliked me, Itachi-kun somehow saw something in me that he liked. I still haven't figured out what it is." The Uchiha stilled when Naruto started laughing at him. "Don't make me punch you," he threatened as he sat up. Rubbing away some tears from his eyes, Naruto waved his hand in defense. "No, I'm not laughing at you. It's just that." He stopped as he suddenly stiffened. "What is it?" "Someone is nearby. I can sense it now." "How?" "It seems that I managed to maintain some natural chakra," he said with an exciting grin. "I didn't expected that. More important though, I recognize the signature. We may have a problem though." "What is it?" "I recognize the signature. It's an Uchiha. We don't want attention from your clan right now." Obito's eyes widened in understanding. Can we slip away? I know that this person won't allow that. He will be too curious if we do. Who is it? The one that you poked on the forehead. Naruto told him and easily noticed the excitement in Obito's eyes when he realized who he was talking about. You will let me talk then? If it can't be helped. Can you brats shut up for a moment? I see that you have finally managed to get your spiritual chakra back. About time. Kyubi complained with a low growl. Now, as much as I despite your sword Uchiha, I agree with the brat that you would be the best to talk with him. Naruto would probably ruin it otherwise. He plainly ignored Naruto's protest. No need to be so rude, Kyubi. I wouldn't be if you two weren't so damn loud. Now get going, you two are even more annoying when you are together and even worse with your chakra back. Why must I be the one that gets stuck with two hyper ape monkeys? The demon muttered the last part under his breath. Obito stared with wide eyes at Naruto, who grinned at him. Let's go poke his forehead, Obito. Though remember that we can't be too obvious about our identity. We don't want to gain the attention of your family yet. Naruto warned as he closed his eyes. Nodding seriously at the warning, Obito closed his eyes and tried to think back to the sensation that he had felt once before. A pull appeared in his stomach, and before he knew it, they opened his eye. Naruto was able to keep his face blank, while fighting against the facial expressions that Obito's reaction provoked, and he glanced towards the direction where he felt the familiar chakra come from. This chakra is awesome, Obito told him, feeling much stronger. Don't let it get to your head. Naruto chided him before he fell silent. Naruto didn't turn his head toward the bush that the young Uchiha was crouched behind as he calmly spoke up. He calmly remained in the lotus position he had put himself in and smirked mentally when he felt the chakra signature drop to a nearly unnoticeable level. The young Uchiha was clearly trying to remain hidden. I taught him that. Obito boosted in a prideful manner. He even got better at it than I was. Well, let's show him that you didn't teach him well enough. Naruto teased as he spoke up. Are you going to spy on me all day?
That's it for today. Remember to show your support to the creator of this story if you enjoyed it. If you would like more parts of the story to be uploaded, leave a comment and subscribe to get notified when the story continues. Bye-bye for now, and I hope that you all have a wonderful rest of your day.